很多人现在认识大运种是因为老虎机，但其实，在玩老虎机之前，我一直是一名德州扑克玩家。刚开始接触德扑的时候，其实挺容易赢钱的，因为那时候很多玩家都不懂策略，只靠感觉玩。但这几年，我发现德扑越来越难了，大家水平越来越高，GTO、Solver 各种教学内容也越来越普及。以前靠经验和直觉还能赢，后来你会发现，如果没有真正系统性的学习，很容易卡在一个瓶颈里。也就是这个阶段，我接触到了扑克教练 Andres 的教学。我喜欢他的地方是，他的内容不是只会讲那种理论，讲 solver 的学院派，更是偏向于真正能落到实战里的思维方式。通过学习他的课程，再结合我自己的实战经验，我后来打出了年收入超8万加元的成绩。所以今天我特别邀请到了 Andres 来和大家聊聊德州扑克职业玩家思维，以及普通玩家到底该如何真正提高自己的水平。希望今天这期内容能对正在迷茫、卡瓶颈或者想认真学习德扑的朋友有所帮助。
Okay. Hi, Andres. Great to see you again.
Hello.
I want to start this interview because I want to show appreciation that you helped me to achieve my goals by beating the low stake cash game. When I play in the past, I used to have some struggles. Like I don't know how to beat the game properly, but you helped me achieve like making more than $80,000 a year. That's really, really big achievement for me. And could you please introduce yourself a little bit to my audience?
Yeah, so hello. First of all, thank you very much for having me here. And I'm really proud, and it's great to hear that you've made such a progress. So, yes, my name is Andreas. I live in London, England, and I've been a live poker player for 11 years and a poker coach for 2 years. And I go by the name Live Poker Guide on the internet. I have my own training coaching academy where I help players just like you improve their skills and their results at live low stakes poker.
Fantastic. For today's interview, I have some question for you. The first question is, you have played live poker for many years and coached many players. What are the biggest mistake you see low stake live player making over and over again?
Yeah, well, I see a lot of mistakes, but there are two main ones that I would like to talk about. And the first one is that just pre-flop, they play way too many hands. So that is really an issue that I see over and over again. They get involved in too many hands. They play way too many hands, which then leads to them making more mistakes later on. And one of these mistakes, that's usually the most expensive one, and that is that they will call too much on the river because they will just be involved in too many pots. And then on the river, in games where their opponents just don't bluff enough, they will still just call enough because they just can't let go of whatever hand they had. And together, these two mistakes are probably responsible for about 60 to 70% of people's loss rates in general at these live low stakes.
Exactly. I used to make those kind of mistakes as well. Played too many hands. Then after the post flop, I'm kind of lost. I don't know if I should continue with my hands or not.
Yeah, so that's exactly the problem that I see a lot. Like you get involved with a hand you shouldn't get involved in the first place, and then you are in a post-flop situation, and then you're flopping a weak hand because you had a weak hand to start with, and then you don't really know what to do with it. It's too good to bluff with it, but it's not good enough to really put in a lot of money. So you end up putting in some money, and then in the end, you just lose with it, and you lose more than you would have had to if you had just folded it pre-flop.
And my second question is, many players study a lot, but still struggle to win consistently. Why do you think there's often gap between knowledge and the actual result?
So if it is true that this is the issue, if really people have the knowledge and then they just can't execute on it, that usually indicates there is a mindset issue with that, or they're just folding under pressure, and by folding, no pun intended. But yeah, so they don't know how to execute in the moment because they're just too stuck in their emotional brain and they can't transition from the emotional brain to the logical brain. So this is, for example, something that I teach in my paid course as well, is how to actually get from your emotional brain where you can't make any logical decisions to the logical brain. Because this is something that I see a lot, that players just can't really make that shift when it matters. So this is one thing. But the other one, and often this is actually also the problem, that players think that they have the knowledge, but they don't really have that knowledge. So they have some knowledge because they watch a video here, a video there, they read an article, they did some GTO drills, whatever, but they lack that strategy that's just like the whole strategy, a step-by-step strategy. They will just know bits and pieces here and there, and they don't know how to put those together. And often that is the issue, that they think they're more advanced than they actually are. But the problem there is that that means that they still lose, and then it's not so much an issue of them not being able to execute on it, but it is actually the hidden issue of not really even knowing that they aren't as advanced as they think that they are.
For sure, your coaching material really helped me on that. My third
Great.
question is, if you could give one piece of advice to a 1-2 or 1-3 live poker player who wants to dramatically improve their win rate, what would it be?
Yeah, so one thing that really dramatically improves win rates without people actually even noticing it like that would be to just tighten up a lot pre-flop. That is just really the biggest shift that you can make very quickly. And that will really reap the rewards there, because players just play way too many hands, and then they will just end up in pots that they shouldn't be in there. They will have a lot of difficult decisions. If you tighten up to the point where you play only like 15% of hands, which I understand can be a little bit boring sometimes, but you basically have to choose, do I want to be an action junkie, or do I want to make money with it? And you can't have both, unfortunately. So if you want to make money, you just have to choose this option of just not being an action junkie and just playing fewer hands. And that will then mean that you will be involved in pots with stronger hands. And when you have stronger hands, you'll just know that it's a lot easier to play those hands than if you have all sorts of hands. So then you have to bluff less, and especially at low stakes, you can't bluff players as much. So you just go for value, and even if your opponents are aggressive, you'll just have stronger hands to counter that. So that's why I would say this is by far the quickest way to improve your win rate. Just play a lot fewer hands than you are probably currently playing.
Agree with you. And then my fourth question is, your coaching focus specifically on live low stake poker. What make live poker strategy different from online poker strategy?
So these days, online poker is very different to live poker. Like if we think 10 or even more like 20 years ago, the strategies were quite similar. But the problem in online poker is that because it moves so much faster and people can play a lot more tables, that means that weak players just lose their money a lot faster, and then they just leave because they get disillusioned, they get frustrated, and then they just leave. And in live poker, that's not the case. The game moves so much slower. And because of that, um, even weak players, they just stick around a lot longer because they don't notice how they actually lose money whereas in online poker they really notice that very fast. So what that means is that the online poker environment has shifted a lot over the past few years. Like all these weaker players, they went, they played, they got frustrated, and then they left. And that means that it's the good players that are actually left online. So what that means is that you have an ecosystem online where it's 80 to 90% of players are studied players, and only 10 to 20% of players are unstudied players. And that just changes the game a lot. That means there's a lot more aggression going on online. There will be players who play more like a GTO, game theory optimal style. Not that they can actually replicate that, but they're trying to get as close as possible to that. So you have to be more balanced with that. You have to watch your raise sizes. You can get exploited much faster if you make a mistake in online poker. In live poker, it's very different. Players are not as good, they're not as aggressive, they will not exploit you as much. And all of these things just make live poker much easier. However, you have to know how to deal with that. So that's why you need two very different strategic paths to play online and live. And when I play, because I play both of them, I don't play as much online, but I still play it. I am a completely different player there. I try to be like fundamentally sound in online to be as close as possible to GTO. That would be a terrible approach in live poker. And vice versa. If I played online like I play live, I would get crushed. And if I played live how I play online, I would also get crushed. So there are really big differences there. And the differences are that in live poker, you can just exploit players a lot more. You can use bigger sizes when you have good hands. You can mm, get away with thin value betting and all sorts of things that you can't do online. So that's why playing live is just such a better environment where you can have a much bigger and much better, healthier win rate.
So what are some strategy adjustments that strong player need to make in today's live poker games compared to 5 to 10 years ago?
Yeah, so 10 years ago, it would have been absolutely enough basically to play what I call the tight aggressive strategy, which is like basically you just wait until you have a really big hand, then you raise with it and you just bet for value and you'll get called. So that was really easy like 10, 15 years ago. In today's games, that hasn't necessarily changed a lot, but it has changed in a few nuances that are important. So there are still some games, some 1-2, 1-3 games around the world where you can still do exactly that. But the skill level of the average player, even in live poker, has just improved. This is just the natural way, and it will continue to improve. And what that means is that you have to be a little bit smarter about how you go about all of this. You can't just do exactly what you did back then. You can still have that as your main strategy. And in fact, that's what I teach. I teach a tight, aggressive playing style, but on top of that, you have to be smarter in certain situations and not just rely on having these big hands and just wait until you get them, because you might only get like one every 5 or 6 hours. And that's just not enough anymore. You need to know the situations when you can actually bluff players, even players who rarely fold. You can still bluff them sometimes, but you have to know when and how. You have to become better at hand reading, at profiling players, and at understanding the nuances, how good or bad those players actually are, and what propensity for mistakes they actually have. Because this is a really big one. You have to know how to play the specific player. So that's what has changed. You just basically need a strategy that is a little bit more sophisticated than just wait for big hands and get paid for them. And you have to know how to do all those things in a game in order to maximize your winnings and just keep that win rate that was much easier to achieve 10 years ago.
For sure. Before taking your course, I always have a big problem that I don't know when to bluff, and it really costs me a lot of money. You have mentioned that many players lose money with hands they actually love to play, like their favorite hands. Uh, what what this make them become expensive mistakes?
Yeah, so that Um, it's funny because a lot of players say that, hey, they have favorite hands, and almost everyone loses money with those hands. And the reason for that is basically favorite hands tend not to be great hands. If your favorite hand is pocket aces or pocket kings, then by all means continue playing those and you'll make money with them. That's not what I'm talking about when I say that favorite hands don't make money. But most players will have a favorite hand that's either something like completely weird. Like I know someone who has Jack 5 suited as his favorite hand. Well, that is just a terrible hand to play with. So you don't want to put in a lot of money with Jack 5 suited. Other players have like 7 deuce offsuit as their favorite hand because that's just like a fun hand to play, whatever it might be, but it's still a losing hand. And then the other category, and that's one of the categories or one of the hand classes that most players misplay, and that is the suited connector. So something like 9-8 of hearts, 8-7 of spades, 7-6 of clubs, these sorts of hands. And they look very pretty, and people get really excited when they see those hands, but they're actually not good hands. Like, even if you look into a GTO solver, you will see that those hands are usually break-even hands. And in live poker, they're even worse because the way you make money in live poker most of the time is by having a better hand than your opponent has and just get value with it. Well, the problem is if you have the 7 high flush and a lot of money goes into that pot, you're probably behind because someone else could have a higher flush, even if it's just the 8 high flush or 10 high flush, jack high flush, whatever it is. So that's why I really like playing suited aces in multi-way pots in live poker, because then I'm at the better end of these coolers where I have the better flush. But if you play those medium suited connectors, well, guess what? You will more often than not be on the receiving end of the losing end of such a situation of flush over flush. And that's exactly why those favorite hands are just not as amazing as people think. So that's why just focus on good hands, on the hands that actually make you money, rather than playing some silly hand that you only play because it reminds you of your birthday, or you once won a big pot with it, or it looks pretty, or whatever.
So how important is psychology in live poker, you think? And what mental leaks do you see hurting players the most?
Yeah, so mental game is very underrated in poker, in my opinion. And in live poker and online poker, there are different leagues that I see there, although some of them are the same. But in live poker specifically, the biggest leagues, well, there are two very big leagues that players have in terms of psychology or mindset. And the first one is boredom. So you only play 30 hands an hour, sometimes even only like 27, 28 if the table is slow. And that leads to boredom, especially if you are meant to only play like 15 or 20% of hands. So for example, if you play 30 hands an hour and you're only meant to play 15% of hands, well, that would be like between 4 and 5 hands per hour. And sometimes the card distribution will be so bad that in that given hour you might only have 1 or 2 hands that you can actually play. And that leads to boredom, and people don't know what to do with that boredom. So some players will then watch some movie on their phone, or others will text someone, which is not great, but it's still better than the biggest mistake. And the biggest mistake is to then just seek some action. They will just play those silly hands that they shouldn't play because they are just too bored. And instead, what I would say is try to focus on observing the other players. You are indirectly making money by observing those players and seeing what they do, because this will be your ammunition for later on when you're in a pot with them. This is where you observe what mistakes they make. But most players will not do that. They will just play hands out of boredom, and that will then get them into trouble. That's how they will lose money. And the second really big problem that I see is that they are too curious. They will want to see what your opponent has on the river. They kind of know that they're beat. Yes, their opponent bet big. They only have second pair, and you'll hear that a lot at the live poker table. It's like, oh, I know you have it, but I gotta see it. I have to see what you have. And then they call there for $200 or whatever it is. And of course, they get shown the nuts. And then they said, yeah, I knew it. I knew it. I just had to see it. Well, yes, you had to see it. Now you've satisfied your curiosity, but you paid a lot of money for that. And that $200, if you make such a mistake, even if it's only every 10 hours that you play, that is $20 an hour that you're losing. So if you did everything else right and you made $20 an hour and you make one of those calls every 10 hours, well, that's your win rate gone. You're at zero now. And if you don't even get to $20 an hour apart from that, well, now you're in losing territory because you made that one mistake every 10 hours, which only comes from your curiosity and nothing else. So it's those two things, like the boredom and the curiosity, that really cost players a lot of money and a lot more than it should.
So, what separate players who improve quickly from those who stay stuck for years?
So players who stay stuck for years, there are two types of players. Some are they just don't even care. They just play, they never study. But we're not talking about those because they can't improve anyway. So between players who actually do some studying and still stay stuck, as opposed to players who improve, there is one big difference there, and that is the right training that they do and also sticking with it. So what I mean by that is that you can get a lot of information out there these days. The internet is full of it. You go on YouTube, you can watch a million different videos about YouTube, about poker on YouTube, anything that you would like, and even things that you don't even think of. The problem with those is that they are absolutely not structured. Today, you will watch a video about some hack that's pre-flop. Then tomorrow, you will watch something about value betting on the turn. Then on the next day, you'll watch something about poker mindset. Then you'll watch something about hand reading. Then and so on. So you get my point. It's completely unstructured. You get bits of information here, bits of information there. You will not get to anything. Like imagine if you had that approach in school when you try to learn mathematics. Well, if today you learned a little bit about division and tomorrow a little bit about subtraction or something like that, and then the next day about something else, well, how could you make sense of all of that? Like there's all sorts of information coming in and out, and you just can't put everything together. You needed in school, you needed a teacher who told you everything in the right order so that you can actually understand what you're doing and then copying that and then becoming, even if not amazing at mathematics, but at least you kind of understood it. But in poker, it's exactly the same thing. You can't just go about learning bits and pieces from here and there. And I understand everything is free and it's very tempting, and I attempted that myself for many years. This is how I studied, and it took me a long time, and it was very difficult to actually make sense of everything. So back to the question, the way people improve quickly is by having a system they follow, a simple system from beginning to the end where the teacher tells them what to do, where they get feedback on it, and they just stay consistently with that and improve and move on. Whereas the players who don't do that are the ones that are stuck. They are the ones watching random videos, reading random articles, not really having a system and not knowing how to implement things to actually get to the next stage.
For sure. Before taking your course, I have taken so many free lessons or free materials from internet. And today I'm gonna experiment this strategy. Tomorrow I'm gonna try that strategy, and it really cost me a ton of money.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It does cost you a lot of money if you just try this strategy and then tomorrow that strategy. It's just such a silly way of learning, and I understand why, because it is free and it is tempting, it's there, and I've done it as well, but it's just not structured and it just won't lead to the results that you need.
You know, yeah, old Chinese say free lessons sometimes are the most expensive lessons.
That is a very good one. Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly it.
So many players focus heavily on learning new strategies, but how important is reviewing and deeply participating the fundamentals?
Yes, fundamentals are incredibly important and they are overlooked by most players. So that's exactly the problem there. People will learn shiny things. Like people are always interested in learning, like how can I bluff this player on the river, or how can I manipulate someone with my big bet sizes, or whatever it is. So that's kind of like the shiny new object syndrome. Whereas studying what hands to open from the low jack or what hands to call with in the low jack after the cut of three bets you, that's not very, yeah, very interesting sounding, but that is exactly what gets you the win rate. That's what makes you a good player, not the shiny hack, how you can manipulate someone on the river. That might help your win rate a little bit, yes, but it's those fundamentals that are very important. And that's also one thing. Like when people study, they what they will do is they will go like this, they'll sit down, watch a video, have maybe a coffee on the side, not even take notes, and then they say, well, I did some studying today. Well, that went in here, went out there pretty much. That's how this usually works. But when you put in the repetitions and actually practice things, whether that's doing drills or even at the table, and then coming back home and doing a hand analysis review where you go through every step that you did in a hand, that is where you will actually learn. That's where your brain will change. It will shift into a more of a learning mode. And it's not passive consumption. That then becomes like active learning where you go through everything and you're the way the brain works is all muscle memory. So the more you do something, the better it will get. So like when you see a baby, you can tell not a baby, but like a small child, look, you can try to teach them how to move this pen up from here to here or so, and they can't really do it the first time round. They will not really know what to do. But once they've done it many times, that's when they will be good at it, and then they can also build more, and this is how then you end up being able to write. Once you're able to move the pen, then you'll improve with that. And poker is exactly the same. You start out not knowing much, then you hear something, but that doesn't mean that you can actually do it. And once you start practicing with it, and once you start experimenting and learning with that and repeating it, that is when you get to the point of actually internalizing and being good at it. And then you can build on top of that and improve even more. And that's why it's so important to start with those fundamentals, get those right, because once you've trained them, you will never really need to come back to them to revisit them, because then they're just in your system. You know what to do, and then you can focus on the next step. You can focus on the shiny new hacks on the river, how you can exploit players. But until then, you need to focus on the fundamentals.
For sure. What's one common poker belief that you think is completely wrong or at least misunderstood?
Yeah, so a lot of players think that they can play more hands and be successful if they are better than their opponents. And
Yes.
this is just not true. Like, yes, in certain situations, if you have a big edge over your opponents and you have position over them, that's when you can start opening up a little bit. But the problem with that is most of the time players overestimate their own skills, so their skill edge that they actually have. So a lot of the time they might be better than their opponent, but they're not that much better than their opponents. And then what this leads to is that they will widen up and play more hands. And the problem is with playing more hands, like if you imagine if you have pocket aces, you can make on average you'll make a lot of money with pocket aces, and then with pocket kings a little bit less, and then with pocket jacks even a little less, and so on. But now if you widen your range more and more and more, that means that you have to make similar kind of money that you're making with your best hands. You're now having to make that money with weaker hands, but you can't. It's just very difficult. And then don't forget that usually you have to pay rake in most casinos or card rooms. So when you pay rake, then already you have to make more money just to compensate that rake with your weaker holdings. And that's just not the way to do it. And especially not if you're out of position, because your opponents, they will play too many hands. And it's not, you don't beat them by you playing more hands as well. You beat them by playing fewer hands, and basically always when you play against them you have the better hand. And by always I don't mean in every single situation, because sometimes they will have aces or kings, but on average, you will have a better hand than they do. And this is how you beat them. So don't get fooled to do what they do, because I mean they're losing money, right? So that is already an issue there, that they're losing money. And so don't try to copy them. Instead, be smart about it and just play tighter, and then have better hands when you get involved against those players.
For sure. And not to mention, more hands you play and the more variance you will go through.
Absolutely, yes. So variance is also a big thing. Like when you play more hands, variance goes up more than you even think, because it goes up simply like with every hand you play, variance goes up just because you play more hands. But then on top of that, if you play like if you have pocket aces, there's still a lot of variance involved. But if you play 9-7 suited, well, that variance goes up even more, because now with 9-7 suited, you're not going to win as often as you do with pocket aces. So that's just the double what happens there with in terms of variance if you play more hands. So yes, absolutely, especially if you don't like variance, playing a lot of hands is not a good strategy.
For sure. Can you share an example of a student who made a major breakthrough and what changed for them?
So I have a lot of students who have had major breakthroughs. One of them that I think was a great story was a guy who joined my program a few months ago, and he wasn't a terrible player. He just didn't really understand a lot of the things was going on. He didn't know when to value bet, when to bluff catch. His pre-flop game was a bit sketchy, all of that. Like he was just all over the place, because he had done what I said earlier. He had just watched videos, read a lot of stuff, but he just didn't have a strategy. He could do okay, but he didn't have a strategy. And then he started doing my course. He worked with me. He submitted some hands, and I saw the growth in his thinking process to the point where we just had that like 2 weeks ago. I showed a hand in one of the hand review sessions that we had, and then he asked a really, really smart question in there that I thought, oh, wow. So now I can really see that he gets it. And then he also sent me an email to tell me that since he started taking the course, his win rate had gone up a lot. So he's now making 11 big blinds per hour, and he just knows where he is in a hand. He's not confused anymore. He knows at every step what to do. And this showed me how, like, what is possible from someone who was really confused and all over the place, to getting to a point where to really ask the right questions, to understand what's going on in a hand that is like really such a great trajectory, and then also really making 11 big blinds per hour, which was unthinkable for that player before he joined.
For sure. If someone wants to become a serious winning live poker player, what should their study and improvement process look like?
So, if someone wants to become a really good, successful player at the live poker, there's only one way, really. You have to have a structured learning system that tells you exactly how to get to how to go through a hand, what to think at every stage of a hand. So that's why the best way is to have some sort of a mentor, and whether that is a paid coach or it's a friend who is already a crusher, but you just need someone to help you get to that, because otherwise you will always be stuck in what we talked about earlier, where all you do is just learn random concepts from this video, from that video. And the way to success is to have this clear trajectory, this clear path, and then repeating those fundamentals and repeating that thought process that you have, like from pre-flop, ask the right questions, on the flop, ask the right questions, and so on, because only that will really make you a truly good player. You can get to being like a tiny winner of like 2 big blinds an hour or so by doing it in a random fashion, but you will always be confused in hands. You will never feel like you're using your full potential. Whereas if you follow a good strategy and learn that step by step, that is exactly what I would suggest players do to improve a lot.
Hey, while I'm doing the interview, the first thing is show the appreciation. Second thing is a good course that you have that really helped me, and I want maybe more people, especially for the viewer of my channel, they can get the same help and become a crusher for low stake life game as well. If you have offer for my viewer, what is it?
Yeah, so I actually have two offers for your viewers, and that depends. So, as I was saying, there are some players who are losing players, and there are some players who are already a little bit more advanced, and we have two separate offers there. So, the one for the players who are not that advanced yet, they're still like beginners, they're losing money. So, I have 10-week or 10 lesson course that is about 10 1 hour lessons that just talk you through exactly my whole strategy. So they go from pre-flop, flop, turn, river, hand reading, profiling players, how to exploit those players once you've profiled them, when and how you can bluff them, also like how you can transition from the emotional brain to the logical brain. So all of those things are in this concise course that teaches them my entire strategy so that they are never lost again. And normally I sell this one for $1,000, but for players who watch your channel specifically, and this offer is not available anywhere else, this is for $697. They can get this course, and it's not just the course. What comes with it is also cheat sheets and PowerPoint presentations that I use. So those cheat sheets will be like flow charts and decision trees that they can study that will already improve their game a lot if they do that. So they can get all of that for $697 with a special link that they can click underneath this video as well. So this is for like the more beginner players. For the more advanced players, they get the same because it's the same actual course that they get, but they then on top of that get a lot more one-to-one coaching with me in the sense that they can get they submit hand reviews, and like every week for 6 full months they can submit hand reviews, and we go over them in a weekly hand review session. That one is taught in a group coaching, but whenever a student submits their hands, then I just only talk to them, and it is like one-to-one coaching, even though it's in a group setting. So that is for 6 full months. Then on top of that, they become members of my private Discord community, and it is really private. It's only just a handful of people in there. They can ask me any sort of questions. They can submit even more hands. I will give very detailed feedback on everything, and this has been a big needle mover for a lot of my students because they have been able to work specifically on their game. This is where we eliminate their mistakes in their own game. And then also we do a monthly webinar, a workshop where we take a deep dive into a specific topic, like how to play against loose aggressive players. Another one will be how to become better at hand reading. Another one will be how to play multi-way pots. All of these things, that's all designed to improve your live low stakes game skills, and you get access to all of that for 6 months. You can also then learn from other players' mistakes. So if you are interested in that one, then you can click also the link in there, and that will take you to a booking page where you can book a free call with a member of my team who can then talk you through all the details of this program. As I said, this is for slightly more advanced players who are maybe break even or small winners. If you are still in the losing stage, you can join this as well. But you can start with the offer, the first offer for the beginners for $697, and then you can always upgrade to the other one and book the other things separately at a later stage. And just price wise, so normally I sell this whole thing, so everything like the lessons, the Discord, the webinars, and the live hand review sessions for 6 months. That's normally $3,500, but again, only for viewers on this channel, this will be $2,500 if you sign up with a right code that will be written in the description as well.
For sure. That's really generous offer. I appreciate that. So where can people find you online?
So first of all, they can just click the link below. That is where you get to my page. But other than that, my YouTube channel is Live Poker Guide, so you can come directly there. You get a ton of value there with lots of videos there as well. Or my website is livepokerguide.coach, so not .com, it's .coach. And you're very welcome to have a look at that as well.
Great. I'll share this awesome information with all my viewers.
Thank you so much.
Good to have this interview with you today. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
All right. See you next time, Andre.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
好了，希望今天的这期访谈，无论是对刚刚接触德扑，想通过这项游戏增加收入的新手，还是已经有一定经验， 但正卡在瓶颈期的玩家都能带来一些真正有价值的启发。我自己其实也是一路踩坑走过来的，所以现在分享这些内容并不是为了单纯卖课，而是因为我真心觉得安德烈斯的教学理念和很多传统德扑教学不太一样，他更强调实战、人性、心理以及长期稳定盈利的底层逻辑。也正因为如此，我才愿意把它的内容分享给大家。目前安德烈斯也特别为大军种的频道观众提供了专属优惠，如果你有兴趣了解课程详情，或者想看看自己适合从新手课程开始，还是直接进入高阶段的训练营，我都会把相关信息放在置顶评论区。另外，大军种自己德扑频道 Bad Luck Poker 接下来也会重新开始更新，我会结合自己的实战经验以及安德烈斯的教学内容，给大家做更多深入、更接地气的解析。感兴趣的朋友也可以去支持一下。我们下期见喽！
点赞了吗？订阅了吗？快点，下次再来哦。